So my name is Robert Flores Jr. I was born here in El Paso, Texas. I grew up primarily in the Bel Air feeder pattern area. And my journey with food started at a very young age. My earliest memories was when I would watch my grandma, my mother's mom, cook in her kitchen, and even though I was very young and there was a little bit of a language barrier, her and I still managed to communicate through her cooking. So growing up with her, I remember that she would wake up before the crack of dawn to pray the rosary every morning. And after she was done with that, she would then proceed to the kitchen to start making her tamales that she would pass out to members of the family, neighbors, and other friends. And so that was something that always stood out to me, was her always doing that after her morning ritual. She was a devout Catholic, and many of her older brothers actually discerned and ended up becoming priests. And so she grew up with a strong faith in Catholicism, and she continued serving her community. She would walk to Mass, pray the rosary every morning, and any food that she would ever make, leftovers or an excess amount, she would take to share with the people there. Or if she knew of another parishioner or another friend of the church who was under the weather, she would go and take them food so that they could have something to eat as well. Again, so this all happened when I was very, very young, and it's more of what has been told to me when I have been older. But to my understanding, one of my grandma's neighbors in the home where she lived with my grandpa, the neighbor wasn't as welcoming and as loving as she was. And even though my grandma was always faced with this resistance, and she was always still very, very loving and compassionate towards them. And the woman who lived next door, her husband actually came down with a terminal illness. And so every day she would prepare them food, warm it up for them, take it to them on a daily basis. And I think that's how that relationship kind of began. Because to my understanding, this neighbor was very cold, would give my grandma the cold shoulder, and wasn't very nice. And my grandma consistently always prayed for her and tried. And when that instance had occurred, it kind of just turned the page in a new chapter. And I remember hearing the story when she had passed away. The neighbor, the wife, had a conversation with my mom and my aunts and uncles. And she said that she was very upset and angry with herself because my grandma lived next door to her for so long, and she didn't take advantage of her friendship until the end of her life. From what I took away from that was, there might be times where I'm able to provide for others who may not necessarily be able to provide for themselves. And it kind of goes back to a prayer that someone from my parish has taught me, and it's this is the English translation, where it's give bread to those who are hungry, and hunger to those who have bread. So if we're able to feed ourselves physically, then we also need to feed ourselves spiritually. And once we're able to do that, then we then need to go back and help those who aren't able to feed themselves physically. And so I think that's kind of what I've taken away from my memories of her and how she served others in her community. Food is a way to nourish our bodies, give ourselves energy. And I think what it means to me, the backbone, is kind of what I've learned from that prayer that I spoke about earlier. We need to feed those who are hungry by giving them bread, by providing them with food, resources. But we also need to feed ourselves spiritually. And so if there's anything that I've learned from my experience with food, with my experiences with my church family and my upbringing, it's that. It's give bread to those who are hungry and hunger to those who have bread. Making sure that we're fed in all aspects of our lives.